There's a chance and a gap in between the speakers. Just come right up here, say what you got to say, then go back to your regular seat, and someone else can take your spot. If you are giving an advertisement and they're still clapping for the main speaker, I'm not going to count the time against you. Wait. If you're the speaker about to start and they're still making noise over here, I won't count the time against you. You can wait. Your time starts when you make your first speaker move. Remember, a bell at 4 minutes, gong at 5 minutes, and then we'll switch and rinse, lather, and repeat. Or the other way around. I always mix it up. And I think we're all in place now, so let's go ahead and get started.
So, good afternoon. My name is Galen Charlton. I work for an outfit called Equinox Software, and we develop and support open source software for libraries. So, I will talk to you about a problem that libraries face, namely that libraries do not have the ability to defeat the laws of physics. So, if you consider one library, libraries are no longer just all about the books, but they do tend to have lots of them. The problem is that libraries cannot have all of the books. And so this is something that can result in making a patron sad, because I may not care that the local library has 1 million books if they don't have the one book I want to read tonight. So, of course, one of the ways that libraries can solve this problem is by banding together in something. I will throw a non-techie jargon at you, a resource sharing consortium where libraries band together and share their materials. So, let's say J.K. Rowling has produced her 8th Harry Potter novel. And come on, you know she's going to get back into it. So if my library in Orlando doesn't have it and I want it, but some library in Miami does, well, through the magic of resource sharing, I can make the request, ideally directly in the library's main catalog, not dealing with silly interlibrary loan paperwork, and then it will eventually make its way into my grubby little hands. So, one way of doing this, an open source system I work on both professionally and for fun called Evergreen. So, Evergreen came about because the Georgia Public Library Service had a problem in 2004. They were paying boku bucks for a proprietary system that couldn't really manage resource sharing all that well among the 100-odd library systems in the state. So they took what for libraries at the time was a pretty brave move and decided, okay, we will write our own. And in 2007, Evergreen was released upon an unsuspecting world. So you may be having a bit of deja vu if you've been here for a while, because, well, didn't you hear about an open source library system written in Perl? Yeah, a few years ago, Ruth spoke about COA. But, different projects have different emphasis. Evergreen's emphasis is library consortia. So, I've been saying iOS. What's an iOS? It stands for Integrated Library System, and it's basically the Swiss Army chainsaw for libraries. So squeezing in a search engine to search for metadata about books, customer relation management system, an inventory system, an organizer of all of the good metadata, not the NSA metadata, and a protector of library patron secrets, which matters because, yes, the FBI literally has been known to go after people's reading history. This is generally considered a bad thing. So why should you, random Perl hacker, care? And why consider contributing? Because there is a lot of interesting problems. library metadata search, setting up resource sharing networks, dealing with scalability considerations, because we're talking about systems that are, while not huge as far as banks are concerned, are pretty large as far as libraries are concerned. So MQ was a little immature at the time, so we wrote our own called OpenSurf. We have a friendly community who's known for not biting people's heads off. This is important. And libraries and free software share many values. Through openness and collaboration comes strength. So if any of this sounds appealing, feel free to ask me about it later, or go to Evergreen's website, join the library forest. By the way, forest puns are mandatory, and visit evergreenios.org.
Hi people. Okay. Hi people, I'm Wendy. I promised several people that I would have 100 of those today, maybe tomorrow. Today I got a message from the makers that the factory did a big boo-boo and sent it by normal mail instead of FedEx. So it will arrive a couple of hours after I leave on Monday next week. So sorry. I promised several of you that if they would not arrive in time, that you could contact me to get them by mail. So I guess most of you know who I am and find my email address, so contact me if you really want to have them. I don't know a price yet because I don't know what the shipping costs are. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Chad Granum, and I'm going to do something that might be fairly stupid. I'm going to try to explain to you all the internals of Test 2 in a hurry without any slides. So, Test 2, unlike Test Builder, is an event-driven system. All your tools will produce an event. The events then go through a pipeline that eventually ends, usually, at a formatter. The main formatter that is included is the tap formatter. But you can replace it with any formatter you want very easily. The pipeline initially consists of what is called a hub. The hub's job is to get the event, change any internal state, such as how many tests have run, how many have failed, and so on, which then, after it does that, it forwards it off to wherever it is supposed to go, usually the formatter. However, hubs are actually a stack, and all events always go to the hub at the top of the stack. And that hub could choose to send it to another process or another thread if you're doing threading or forking, something that Test Builder really didn't support well. Or you can have one go onto the top that is a subtest. This is how subtests are implemented now. Ultimately, though, the hubs eventually will get the events to go where they need to go. In this pipeline, there are lots of hooks that you can hook into. You can hook into when the events first come in so that you can modify the events before any state is changed or anything else sees it. Then there's another stage where you can do the same thing, but after it's already arrived at its destination hub, which might be in another process. Then after it goes to the formatter, you can have any number of listeners, which is another hook to see all the events that have already gone through. This way you can output to TAP and also output to a database or to JUnit or any other thing you want. As well, all of this is encapsulated in what is called the Test2 API. Much like Test Builder, there did need to be a singleton. Unlike Test Builder, you have absolutely no access to the singleton. It is a closure, and you have to go through the proper API functions to access it. There are lots of hooks on this for all kinds of, for all parts of the process. And there's lots of things you can do with it that are really nice that many test builders, test creators have been trying to do for a very long time. They are all there now. Now, the key to the Test Builder internals, if you're using, if you're writing a tool, is the context object. First thing you'll do whenever you have a tool is you'll acquire the context object, and it knows what file and line to report errors to, as well it knows which hub to send all events to, because it grabbed the one that was at the top of the stack when you acquired it. This is nice because if you want to nest tools, such as write myOK that then calls OK twice underneath it, the ones you call underneath it will inherit that context. So you don't have to mess around with the level variable for any of you who knew about that. It's pretty nasty. So the context object is your one-stop shop if you're building a tool because it gives you access to just about anything you want, and you can just say, hey, context, send off this event, send off this event. So making events is actually pretty trivial. You don't have to think about it. Now, some of the Test2 API hooks include when you acquire context or when you release a context. This is really nice because we're able to implement die on fail and bail on fail, which are some of the most requested things in Test Builder, and it was impossible to do it. But now that we have a hook for whenever the context is released, we can add behavior to that hook, such as dying because, hey, the test just failed. This happens at the very end of the tool after you've called all your OKs and, most importantly, all your diagnostics. This means that, unlike with Test Builder, a die on fail or bail on fail will not prevent you from seeing what line number and file the failure actually happened on. This is the beauty of the context object. I think I'm done.
Hi, my name is Brett, and I wanted to remind everybody about the pull request challenge this evening, and I wanted to stress that it is beginner friendly, and the main goal is to get people introduced into contributing through pull requests or through socializing. And after tonight, it's our hope that you will participate in Neil Bauer's monthly pull request challenge. So we will have food. It's sponsored by Craigslist. We'll be in this room starting at 6 p.m. and we'll go from till 10 or after if things are still going. Thank you.
Anyone else over there? Oh, never mind. Okay, so I can't see up the big I am blowing up everybody's computer at this conference. Another ad? Another ad, that'd be good. We can do yours if it works.
Okay, while we're waiting, as you have heard, the Perl Foundation has made more patches to support the Perl 6 Core Development Fund and the Perl 5 Core Development Fund. They are $50 each. For every patch, you will pay for 1 hour of development of a Core Development Fund. You can get them with me or with the registration desk. I have both, and I already sold 3 of them. Thank you very much.
I'm repeating an announcement I made at YAPC North America 2010 in Columbus, Ohio. Those of you who are traveling in the United States this summer, particularly in the following week, please go to pmgroups.org and find out if there is a Perl Mongers organization in the area you'll be visiting and see if they will provide hospitality for you. Now to a more specific case, if you are traveling to New York City, please contact any of the Perl Mongers attending the conference here so that we can afford you the opportunity to be the subject of a New York Perl Mongers emergency social meeting. For this purpose, please contact either myself, Jim Keenan, David Adler, David Golden, Bulk 88, Alex Gill, or any of the other New Yorkers here today. Thank you.
I do this every year, so old timers, just bear with me. Okay, those of you who are first-time attendees, by a show of hands, for whom is this also the first contact with the Perl community? So you haven't had any contact with the Perl community before this conference. I see a few hands. Thank you. Now that you're here, don't disappear. Welcome to the Perl community. You're members. And if you've enjoyed your time here, I want to let you know that you don't have to wait an entire year to have these feelings again. There are real real-time face-to-face meetings and all sorts of online stuff, particularly Perl mongers. If you do not have a Perl mongers group, I officially empower you to start the Perl mongers group in your area. I used to go through all the list of IRC and Perl monks and all, but now there's a document. It's part of your Perl documentation. If you've got a recent Perl, just say Perl doc space Perl community, and you can see everything that you can be doing till next year. Hope to see you again next year and all in between. Thank you.
Good enough. Okay. So, how many modules do you guys all use? Are there any people out here whose scripts start with these lines and only these 2 lines? Okay, you guys, I want to introduce you to something called CPAN. It's very new, and you guys might want to try it out. But really, mine start looking more like this. I'm using 524. I've got some signatures, and since they're still experimental, you got to work on that, Sawyer. We're going to have to turn off the warnings. And then I'm going to have some automatic error checking, and I need some functional utilities. Pair grep is especially fun when you're dealing with hashes. And then I need some other things from CPAN. I need a proper try block, and I need to do some logging. And now I've got some classes as well. So we're going to take Moose, and I'm going to get some typing. I'm going to get my own types. But then I need everything else that I just had. I need my warnings off, I need my list utils, and I need my logging. And then for roles, I need all of that except with Moose roll up at the top. It's a mess. And now let's try to switch to Moo. You guys can try to run this if you want. I'm not brave enough. I will likely never be brave enough. And don't forget to delete the backup files that get created. There's got to be a better way. And that way is import base. Import base allows you to put all your modules in one place. You can create a set of default imports that allows you to specify that I have strict warnings, a feature set, and I can remove any experimental warnings I want to get rid of. And then all I have to do is I use my base module and I get everything that I want. I can also create bundles of imports. For example, if I have a class, I can say use Moo and types. If I have a role, I can say use Moo role and types. And then I can say use my base class, and now I have a class. And then I can use my base role, and now I have a role. It's also excellent for testing. Unfortunately, I use a lot of testing modules. That's only 6 of them. There's usually more. But if I can just use my base test, I don't have to remember every single test module that I might want. So I can turn this long list of boilerplate into one single line with import base. Thank you.
Tonight at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be organizing an outing to the Stonewall Bar at 74-1 Church Street. It's an LGBT-friendly venue, sort of to give support for local members of that community in light of recent events. I'll be taking off from the lobby at 8. Everyone who takes off with me, I'll pay for the Uber large vehicle or whatever, assuming there are that many of you. People after that, I think you can all figure it out for yourselves. We all have cell phones and stuff. And I'll also pay for whoever comes back when I come back. I just think it'd be a nice thing to do. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jason Chrome. I'm a tech lead for all around the world. I work on Ovid's massively multiplayer game, Viewer. and I'd like to talk to you about web accessibility. How many here do front-end work? Was your last page keyboard accessible? What happened when you increased the font size? Did it work on small viewports? Can you zoom? All these are hard questions, but they shouldn't be. What if you're browsing the web and you only have one hand available? Because you're holding a baby. Don't get the wrong idea. But isn't it nice when a page is available, when it's accessible? Well, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about making them accessible for everyone. We don't always think a whole lot about our end user needs, and we probably spend less time thinking about users with special needs. People with disabilities can and should be able to contribute and use the web. This includes users with auditory, visual, and other disabilities. And while old age isn't a disability, the number of older users isn't getting any smaller, and they benefit from accessibility features too. So why should you care? Well, approximately 15% of the world's population has some sort of disability, and 2 to 4% of them are severe. When you don't make your site accessible, you drive people to use other sites. I develop a game, and in my case, that's a large number of potential players I'm driving away. So in my case, good accessibility means more profitability. And in certain countries and circumstances, it's law. I'm going to show you a big, large quote that you really don't care about, but the gist of it is 25 countries in the world now have accessibility laws. And the new EU laws that were just passed affect both private and public companies. But the number one reason you should care is that it might happen to you. You might break your arm, you might lose or suffer from diminished eyesight. I'm not judging you. You might lose your hearing, or you might try to work with a baby in one arm. But anyway, accessibility is not just a checklist. It's a process, and it's a way of working. And accessibility is about quality, and ideally, it's of the same importance in your development process as testing and documentation are. If you don't test and you don't document, well, good luck to you. And you should be designing for inclusion, not exclusion. Not, well, you're screwed if you have an old version of Chrome, but what can I do to make the site work for everyone? Biggest win, easiest way to introduce accessibility into your websites, semantically valid HTML. And that is as easy as ABCD. Anchors for links, B for buttons, clickable divs, don't do it. You can do it, but you're going to need some ARIA attributes to save you. Always check your markup. This is the W3 validator. There are other ones that you can use too. Some other considerations. Run your site through a screen reader. Everyone here who's got a Mac, and a lot of you do, try running your site through VoiceOver once in a while. Fire up your site in links and see if it works with keyboard navigation. Are you designing for mobile? Make sure that your buttons are clickable with your thumb. Contrast, ever tried using a website or using your phone in the sun? Know how hard it is to see or click on certain things? Make sure you've got a good amount of color contrast in your sites. ARIA attributes, real nice, really easy to implement. They're not the most developer friendly, but they will help people that are using screen readers figure out what's going on in your page. And frameworks aren't really good at accessibility, so if you're tied to a framework, make sure that you're prepared to throw in some ARIA attributes to make your sites more accessible. There's some good tools out there for testing accessibility of your site. I like Wave, not Google Wave, but these will tell you why there's something wrong in your site, and it's going to give you some good suggestions on how you can go about fixing them. Tenon.io is a really good site. It's probably the best tool out there, but you're going to have to pay for it. There are some really good resources. The easiest one to get started, look at the web accessibility checklist. Don't worry about jotting down these addresses in a hurry. This is on SlideShare. And look at the Web Accessibility Initiative docs on the W3 site. And I issue a challenge. On your next project, make a point of focusing on the accessibility of your site. If you aren't developing anything new, go back and revisit another project and make it accessible. If you're going to design something too, actually make it have a purpose. Design that doesn't enhance content is art. And I give a lot of credit to this presentation for our two front-end developers who've done a lot to teach me a lot about the importance of accessibility. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Uri Gutman, and just think about this question for a second, then we'll move on. Okay. Oh, what happened there? Oh, okay. Fine. Okay. Make noise or use one of these building toys. Anyone ever use Lincoln Logs? How about Tinker Toys? Kenner? Anyone use Kenner? I use a little bit of Kenner. Okay, okay. How about K'NEX? Here's my favorite. Erector sets. I had that same, we had that same red steel box with 3 sets merged. Look at the bottom right there. You see a massive AC motor. That was pretty impressive in those days. This was back in the 60s. Okay, and Lego. Okay, everyone's playing with Lego. So remember the fun with these things? Okay? You're only limited by your imagination. Way more fun than most coding projects, right? Okay. So you can build many projects from the same set of toys, toy pieces. And you are the architect and the builder. So what do they have in common? What do you notice about all those building toys? Any thoughts? Most any part can connect to any part. That was one of the key points of these systems. And you can build a complex thing out of simple parts. Anyone use Foul Slurp here? You make noise. Okay. It's over 600 reverse dependencies on Meta CPAN. I'm available for hiring right now. Okay, let's make programming fun again. Data flow is a way to organize your software the way those toys organize their pieces. It's a universal API. Any node can send data to any node. Now, what is a universal API? Well, a common one is shell tools, pipe, and standard I/O. We've all used it, but you don't think about it as a generic API, a universal API. So simple modules that do one thing and do it well. When you get really complicated modules, they're really hard to debug, hard to maintain, hard to use. Complexity arises from layers of simplicity. Think of it that way. It has external configuration. You initialize nodes with addresses. They do not directly connect to other nodes. They only know about the address of another node. Independence, isolation, loose coupling. Each node is given a unique address, and the configuration architecture is done by the intelligent designer, which is you, not some being above you. And at data flow, you actually do have to think differently. It's not your typical call stack deep call stack deep dependency. It's a loose mesh of interrelated modules. If you're interested in data flow, contact me. If you have a data flow project, contact me today. And if you have a data flow project with funding, contact me yesterday. And finally, I have a much larger article that's in process. You can get a preview copy if you ask me. And here's one line from the article, and hold the pain till later. That's it. I'll leave you with that line. Thank you.
So most of you know me for Perl, but a lot of you also know that I have the #1 open source podcast in the world with 50,000 downloads every week, Floss Weekly. I'm trying to get more Perl projects on there. Please contact me. My email address is all over the world. We had Will the Chill on about a month ago, I guess, and it was really well received. So we need more people who need their projects advertised.
Not quite that short. All right. Hi, I'm Sterling. I work for ZipRecruiter. I don't have a lot of time for my slides because this is actually a 50-minute talk I'm trying to do in 5. So if I skip stuff really fast, too bad. So I'm going to talk about Web API for Perl 6, which is what I've chosen to name PSGI for Perl 6 because I didn't want to be confusing with PSGI. P6 SGI just was too confusing. So I'm done with that name. P6W is also confusing because it gets confused for lots of other things that are P6 and then like weekly and anyway. I thought it would be really easy to do this. Like, oh, we'll just translate PSGI to Perl 6, and then I got like tackled by all these people who were like, oh, PSGI has all these problems. And they were right. There were some problems. And so I tried to tackle those, and man, that got complicated real fast. So here's a quick sample of what it looks like in Perl 6, which looks, if you're familiar with how to do a hello world in PSGI, it looks very, very similar. I'm going to skip that, and let's see. So the cool thing that Perl 6 adds that helps solve a lot of problems for PSGI is it has built-in concurrency, and it does so with composable concurrency objects. You have promises, you have supplies, you have channels, you have these tools to help you build composable asynchronous applications, which means that if you build your application with these tools and somebody else builds a library that also uses these tools and you load both of them at the same time, they play happily together and you don't end up with weird deadlocks like you would if you were using two libraries that use semaphores at the same time. Also, I take advantage of automatic type coercion, which is kind of nifty. No. Okay. It's pretty similar to PSGI. I renamed the keys to P6W, and it's all asynchronous. It might also do synchronous too. I'm still debating how that works, and actually everything that this is debatable. So if you hate all of this, you can always come up to me and tell me, or post an issue or something. Everything is up for debate. Nothing is set in stone. Nobody has developed any servers. I mean, there's like Perl 6 servers, but they're not. Nothing is really set. Okay, so just a quick run through of that hello world earlier. So what's different? The main thing is that. So a start in Perl 6 says jump over to another thread and run this code, and when you're done, keep a promise. The promise is returned to this thread immediately. So this thread gets a promise, the other thread runs the code. When it's done, the promise is kept. And you can wait for the promise, or you can go do a bunch of work, and then check if the promise is kept, and then do some more work, whatever. So the idea is that the application never stops the server. It also means that we can do fun things like this, where if you have some reason for doing a different way of doing it, promises are things that are built into all sorts of things. So here, if you emit, you build a supply, which is another kind of object. It's kind of like a chain of promises. You can emit your output, and it's kept as a promise, so it's just a different way of doing it. All this other stuff. So supply is an asynchronous thing where you, oh man, really? Okay, we're gonna go the fast thing here. Okay, so this is one way to write an application. That's actually not what P6W uses. It actually uses supplies there so that you can just stream out a whole bunch of stuff. So it automatically coerces, just like that, but it happens automatically, so you don't have to worry about it because coercion. Here's some other things, though. The thing that I like to say is that it's a lot easier to read. So that's how you do a delayed response in PSGI. Blah, blah, blah. That's how you do it in P6W, in theory. So that is a lot shorter, Here is streaming data in PSGI. It's very easy to read this code. I can tell you're all know exactly what this does already, so I'm just going to skip it. This is the easier version where we just have to say, oh, we want to stream some code, well, I'll just return a supply that does that. I find this very much easier to read. I wish I could explain everything going on, but I don't have time. So the main thing I want to get to, come on, faster. Oh, there we go. Join me at the pull request challenge if you have more questions, and help me out.
Okay, I've got two quick announcements. First off, several of you were trying to install Test2 workflow and found you couldn't because of some bugs there. I have a dev release out that fixes this, so cpnm dev will let you download it, and on Saturday when I'm back home, I'll release a stable. Second announcement, sometime tonight I have to look at the calendar. I want to try and arrange a birds of a feather meeting for everyone who's interested in testing stuff to come and just meet with me, and we can all figure out a bunch of testing stuff.
Hello. This is a book. It's called Architects of the Web. And if you look inside it, there are chapters about various individuals and technologies that had a great impact on the early web. There are a few strange omissions in this book. The weirdest one is that Tim Berners-Lee didn't get his own chapter. But the one that's more to the point for here is that there's no real mention of Perl in a book like this. And that's a shame because, as we heard earlier, Perl and the web have this very interesting, fascinating sort of connected history or overlapping history. And so I'm actually here starting a research project about this very question, about this shared history. It's a 4-year project, which is really good because I have some very broad questions. I want to know how Perl helped shape the web, and by that I mean how Perl allowed people to sort of push the web in different, non-obvious, unexpected directions, but also this flip side of what the web meant for Perl. It's the evolution of the language, its adoption, and the evolution of the community. So again, very broad. The period I'm interested in is also broad, roughly what we would call Web 1.0. What this means is that I would like to talk to many of you about some of your favorite topics. So you guys thought you got rid of CGI, but now the web historians are here to kind of ask you to talk about it some more. So CGI is, of course, very central to that story of this shared history, but it's by far not the only thing. There's, of course, on the client side, all the sort of first bots and spiders that were being written with Perl, often that were very interesting and important for the early web. There's so many fascinating stories. I've just begun, but I've already found some neat things, at least things that I definitely wasn't aware of, but you guys might be. So, for example, now I'm digging into a Perl a server written entirely in Perl in 1993 at Indiana University. That was the name of it. It later became something called Plexus. Are there people that remember Plexus around 94? So I want to talk to you two, yes? Plexus actually inspired the work on the Common Gateway interface. So the story about this server reveals this rich entanglement with how the web became a dynamic medium. So fascinating stuff. Another story I'm interested in on the opposite end of that time period is the Everything engine, which many of you at least know through Perl monks. The Everything engine was written in the around 98 to 2000 by Nate Ostendorp and also by some people, Tim Broom, if he's here, has worked on it. And yeah, so it's a fascinating, mind-blowing platform for its time because it sort of prefigured a lot of what we saw later with social media, but it did so while being attached to a very different culture. It's a very different character. So it's, yeah, fascinating stuff. What holds these sort of different questions and and things that I'm interested in together is that Perl seems to appear in web history over and over, not just as a kind of technical tool to build stuff with, but also a kind of conceptual resource for thinking about what the web can do. And that's what I'm interested in. That's the kind of history I'm hoping to write. So who am I? The most important thing is I don't have a real programming background. So on the one hand, as I try and talk to you people, I'll ask some dumb questions. But on the other hand, I think that with something like this, it's good to be somewhat naive going into it, not having too many assumptions. I got interested in Perl. I was writing a dissertation, including a chapter about Slashdot. You can barely read Rob Malda's review of that chapter. He called it pretty accurate, which doesn't sound like the grandest of praise, but he can be a critical spirit. Some of you may remember his review of the iPod in 2001. If you put those side by side, I come out, pretty good, which I'm not sure is a good thing or not, right? So yeah, it's a very broad project, and I'm just starting out, but I would love to hear your stories, your thoughts, your tips, any resources that you can think of, any old crap you have laying around that might be interesting to this project. Please get in touch with me. And really, I would like to talk to as many people who were involved in 90s web development and Perl at that time. Doesn't matter if it was big projects like Everything or just odd jobs. All of you have information and perspective that I can use. So send me an email. We'll set up a Skype interview or something. So thank you. Thank you also for being so welcoming at this conference to an outsider. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, I'm Rick. Hi, I work at I live in Pennsylvania, great state. Anybody here been to Pennsylvania? Yeah. Pennsylvania, it's a lot like Florida, except right now it's hotter. But it's great in the winter, we get like 3 feet of snow. So wonderful place. I work at a company called Pobox. Who here has used Pobox or Pobox software? Right, a lot of people. We are hiring right now. If you would like to live and work in the great state of Pennsylvania and get to tell me my code sucks, you can come do that. Yes, it's not as effective when you shout it from the audience because I don't care. But if you're sitting next to me and I can't force you to go away, there's a problem. So pobox.com/jobs. Check it out. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm ready to go. As soon as my phone wakes up again. Oh. Over here. That's right. You won't hear me if I'm standing over there. Come on, phone. Where's my notes? There we go. So I'm going to tell you a story that's 25 years in the making, which is almost back to the beginning of Perl. Back at the time when Perl 4 was the ruler. How many people here, they mentioned earlier, Tickle, TCL, familiar with that? Toy command language? Okay. What are the two projects that put Tickle on the map? TK. And what's the other one? Expect. I saw Expect and fell in love with it. In case you're not familiar with it, it lets you babysit a process or babysit a socket. And when you saw a pattern, do this. When you saw a different pattern, do that. I wanted Expect in Perl, but it wasn't there. So I wrote some code. I took my hand to writing a bit of code. It had both socket features and it had command operation subprocess features. And a lot of other people also missed Expect and also wanted to know about this. So I started asking in the channels, the support channels, where can I get Expect in Perl? And I would post this thing I eventually called chat2.pl. Some of you may even remember that, right? I posted it so often to the support channels in the Perl community that without asking me, where's Larry? Without asking me, Larry put chat2.pl in the core distribution. It turns out, and this got added in 1991 and became part of the series of patches that went from 4.11 or what is 4.11 up to 4.19. So that's when it was added. Okay, and I went, Larry, what's that doing in there? That's because there was so many people asking about it, they figured, hey, we'll save time by just putting it in the distribution. That's a long time ago. But somebody else noticed that and built FTP.pl on top of that, a pure Perl client. And somebody else noticed when they were setting up the CPAN that we couldn't count on the FTP working the same way all over the world. So they built the CPAN basic infrastructure on top of FTP.pl, on top of my chat2.pl. All, again, just coincidence. I eventually got tired of supporting chat2.pl, especially after we got all the way out to Perl 5 and expect.pm came along. So I asked the pumpkin, I think it was Sarathe, to remove it. Well, of course, that was 2000, May of 2000, Perl 5.6.1. And in the commit message there, it even says, Randall wants this out. Okay, so one of the things is I wrote this pretty early on, early socket code, early stuff. And so I'm going to show you some anti-patterns from the code. Okay, so this is actually coming from the actual Git Perl repository, which is how I had to find out about this. I'm going to show you a few anti-patterns. First one is, since I'm opening up a socket, where's my scroller? Here we go. I need to be able to, lots of ugly code there. I need to be able to have AF_socket, sock stream, and TCP. And you're seeing the prophetic comment right below that. I had only lived in a BSD world. And to get the other values on other operating systems, you had to run H2PH, which you knew everybody hadn't done. So I hardwired 2, 1, and 6 directly in my code. Okay, rather prophetically, who would want to change that? System 5 has entirely different values. And later on, Linux adopted the System 5 values. So it broke everywhere except BSD. Okay, very prophetic, definite anti-pattern. Just count on the water side. In fact, it was fixed in later releases by actually forcing people to run socket H2PH. Here's another little odd thing in here. So to open proc, I'm getting, nothing's fancy there. But the best part is the expect function. I build up the source code of the expect function by concatenating a lot of Perl code. Okay? And then I eval the code. And I create a brand new subroutine at the beginning. Remember, this is before code refs, right? And here is the other most interesting thing here. That's the way you called effectively a code ref. Okay? And one other thing down here, I also hardwired how to get a pity in BSD. So really, don't do this. Don't do this at all. Now maybe you want to show your friends. How are you going to copy that URL down? It's just a really long URL. Well, here's the magic. Hopefully you're online. Any one of you right now can go to the URL, no kidding, chat2.pl. There's the code right there. When this first came out, I asked the Polish registrar whether I could get chat2.pl. He says, you're not in Poland. But I was playing around the other day registering domains, and I just typed chat2. Chat2.pl was available outside Poland. So if you want to register your program .pl, you now can. Thank you very much. Oops.
While I set this up, there's no announcement, right? So I'm going to make an announcement. I was making the summary emails and blog posts and everything. Well, actually, while Rick was talking. But I forgot one major thing. We're talking about Perl, and you know, there's Perl 5 has an interpreter that we release once in a while, and there was one thing I forgot that actually happened that was pretty big. I feel bad about it. The person who I made the mistake with doesn't actually care, but he did tell me about this. And there was a new release made this week while we were all here by the person who's sitting right over there trying to not look suspicious. And it's Matthew over there. So there was a new Perl 5 released, 5.25.5, which is one of the versions that will come out for 5.26. So thank you, Matthew. Okay, that was the announcement. And now I think I have a talk. Okay, so I'm going to talk about refutil and more. It's about 85 slides in under 5 minutes. With JHacks, it's about 33.5 seconds per slide. So, you know, that's definitely going to work. Okay, so assuming there is, oh, I'm sorry you can't see this very well. Let me see if I can spot it. I know, right? It's horrible. Okay, let me see if that worked. Hey, I'm here for... Does this work? All right, screw it. So let's say there's a foo and it's an array ref, and then what I do is check if it's an array, print yes, print no using ref, and it's going to be yes, of course. What about now? Can anyone say quickly yes or no? That's not going to be no, because I actually made a mistake over there, and because I'm dyslexic, that happens actually often. So now I'm going to make another change. Will it work now? Yes, no. Yeah, well, I made another mistake here, so now it's going to be no. But what if I do this? So actually now it is going to be yes. And the reason is that ref is used for two things. It is used whether to check if it is blessed into a package, which it will now work, whether it's blessed into a package that is actually an array that is also a type, or to check whether it's a certain type, unless it is blessed, and then you're going to get that instead. So it does two things, and both badly. Now, there is a solution. Let's assume that you got it from something else. Let's say a function called whatever that returns an array, ref, or any kind of a ref. And assuming you had a function called isArrayRef that I have written because I have. I've written all of these functions, and does anyone even know ref? Larry, don't raise your hand. There's also plain for all of these. So the plain variation is usually what you want when you want to get parameters, because you want to make sure it wasn't actually an object that is some kind of reference, but you want to make sure that it's just like a clean array ref or hash ref. There's also the blessed variance, and the blessed variance really helps when we want to make sure that it is actually an object. Okay, so that's refutil. You go to MetaCpan and CPAN, you can install these, and it's kind of nice. Now, this is implemented using access. This is the entire code for a single function, not that bad, but I decided that I wanted to do something more. You probably haven't been to my talk where I explained, so I'm going to explain it to you. I started using custom ops, and custom ops help implement an actual op in the op tree, which is really, really, really fast. I'm going to show the entire code. It's this, and finally this, and that's it, which is not that bad, right? It's not that bad. The nice thing about it is the custom ops are really, really, really powerful and reach all the way to the op tree. Now, when you take a look at custom ops, they were actually added in 5.8, but I'm using two specific functions, CV set call checker and xop entry. Quick thank you to Zephram. Thanks to him, I see this. And they were added in 2010. So there's like this sentence, whatever. So, hey, I wish we had this, but we don't. But that's a C precompiler that allows us to kind of say, well, you know, let's set a variable there and let's make sure that we don't compile it if we don't have it. And if we don't have it, we'll compile the XS version instead. So you only have the XS version, not the custom ops, if you're running anything that is under 2010. And it is supported all the way back to 5.6. Okay, now speed. So speed, we have all these tests here, and you can see I'm just going to change clean it up a little bit, and this is actually what you want to focus on. A single ref check, when you do just ref something, 0.6 to run the test. They're not one against the other. So one is 0.6, the other one is faster, 0.02. The lower the number, the better. And refutil is 0.003. So it's quite a bit. It's not that bad, right? It's quite a bit better. Okay, moving on. There's web, and we use PSGI and Plaque in Perl 5, and there are headers, and now in Perl 6, and there are headers, and we use HTTP headers, which are good, but then there's HTTP headers fast, about 20% faster, which is fast. It's really faster, but it's not fast enough. So if you take some C, you take some XS, you take some Perl, you get HTTP XS headers, and HTTP XS headers are a bit faster. And I want to show you some benchmarks, because benchmarks are awesome. So we get three functions. One takes 0.1 for HTTP headers, 0.09 for HTTP headers fast, and 0.004 for HTTP XS headers. Benchmarks are fun. I did a bunch of these. Get headers, the original was 0.08, 0.06 for the faster one, and 0.005 for this one. If I want to push a header, that's 0.2 versus 0.1. Well, not going to work. 0.5, 0.3, 0.004. This is the only one that I was disappointed with because it was only twice as fast as the faster version. And you're probably thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. How can I use this? Well, so the way you use this is that anywhere in your code, hopefully as soon as you can, you will use HTTP XS headers, and that's it. And it will actually affect your entire stack, including plaque and everything else. So it permeates all the way through. I don't think that was the word. All the way through and affects your entire stack without you having to go and fork plaque and stuff like that. So talking about web, we have HTTP access headers. We now have cookies, HTTP cookies, and there's a cookie baker and cookie baker access, which are faster. They have crush. They don't have bake though, so they only go one way. And then there's HTTP access cookies. Look at that. And it does both. And it is Gonzaloware, the guy who wrote Devel Quick Cover, and he wrote with me the access headers. So it's like really awesome. There is a thank list that I would like to provide because I'm pretty much done with all of this, but I really do need to thank a few people. First of all, to Gonzalo, who is a pleasure to work with. He's brilliant. The following people are also amazing. Aaron Crane helped a lot with Refutil, so we get the blessed and plain variants. Christian Hansen improved HTTP access headers. Vikenti is just like everything he does is great. The following people, several of them were heavily involved in P5P and the P5P Club, which is a club of work that we have. And I will end with one thing. If you're interested in finding a job, I heard that Booking is hiring. And if you're interested in moving into Amsterdam and working with a bunch of awesome people, I will probably also be there. Come and talk to us afterwards. That's it. Thank you very much.
I'm almost too exhausted just listening to that to actually think of what to say for my own lightning talk.
I just wanted to say that if the price is $11 a year from hover.com for a PL domain. Yeah. If you want to register your application.
Hold on, I'm not. All right.
Get off the stage already.
Let's try to do this here. There we go. All right, so hello everybody, I'm David. And this lightning talk, I'll try to speak slightly slower than SawyerX, but I still only have 5 minutes, so I might have to go a little bit fast. So this talk is called Is True True? And some of you may be familiar with a module called Boolean.pm. Boolean.pm is one of the many modules on CPAN to try to provide some better form or consistent form of Booleans. So Boolean.pm works like this. Use Boolean, and then you get these nice things, true and false, that you can just use as Booleans throughout your code. So the question is, how are these things implemented? Well, it turns out they are singletons. And if anyone's familiar with how we typically do singletons in Perl, we do it like this. We create some lexicals, we give them some values, and then when true and $false are just blesses those references into this class, and then later the subroutines true and false, which get exported, just return those singletons. So interestingly, Boolean.pm also offers this function, is true, of some value. And what this is asking is not like, is this true in the true-false sense of an if test. This says, is this the true singleton? And so is true is asking whether the $val is a true singleton. And so let's take a look at that function really quick. Is true looks like this. And the interesting part is this here, which is overload string value of the argument equals the true value. Well, overload string value is really just kind of like a slower form of ref adder. It says, well, if this argument you gave me was blessed into some class and has string overloading, just tell me what its string value would be without the string overloading. And as we know, if you take the string value of some reference, you just get some text that includes a memory address. So it's just really kind of like ref adder. So what's this true value thing? Well, true val is part of the begin block that I didn't show you before, where it says ahead of time we're going to cache this overload string value. So true value is just overload string value of the singleton. So if we look at all this together, we have this true value as the overload string value, and then later is true is saying, well, is the overload string value of the argument you gave me equal to this true value that I have? And so now, does anyone see the problem yet? Anyone? Hands? Show of hands? Any hands? Problems with this? The problem is threads. Everybody, threads are the problem. Threads copy data, okay? You get new variables, but you get copies of the data, okay? So if we go back to this definition back here, $true gets a new address. True value content gets copied. Now do you see the problem, okay? So what was that test again? overload string value of the argument equals the true value. Well, the argument is an address in the current thread. True val is a copy of the address or the string value from the original thread. So now let's do a little test. We'll create a little program, use Boolean, use threads create, and in this subroutine we're going to say is true true. Now, let's think about what is this going to do if I run it? Rick, what is this going to do if I run it? No, Rick. The answer is it's going to crash because I didn't say use v5.10 at the top. So actually, yes. Just imagine if I used Unicode in this. So now if we run this and we say is true true, we get the answer false. Thank you very much.
Hello. If anybody's looking for a job that's not in Amsterdam, my company is hiring Perceptics remote programmers. We're a Perl shop. We do web development. Hi, Ari. Basically, if you want to find out more about it, come talk to me. I'm the guy in the Hawaiian shirt who's not Larry Ball. All right.
Right. Hi. My name is Mitt Smig and Shoot. For some reason, I'm being constantly confused for another Perl person with the same initials. This is annoying. I'm not this MST person. I am Mitt Smig and Shoot. Also, this talk title is all wrong. I did not put in this gerontophilia nonsense. Who is this Gene Heck person? Who is coordinating the talks? This is unacceptable. My talk was gerontoperlia, considered harmful. Now, what even is gerontoperlia? It's using old Perl when you don't need to. And I'm not really talking about the interpreter version here. Let's be clear. This is a solved problem. We have the tools. We have the technology. Use Perl PL brew-env. Build your own Perl. Problem solved. I am talking about language features. I am talking about fetishistically maintaining backward compatibility with earlier versions of the interpreter when there's no need to, when you're using a more modern version of the interpreter. Well, wait. Are there any toolchain gang people here? A few, yeah. I'm sorry. God, I'm really sorry that you have to deal with that. And thank you so much. I appreciate you keeping all of that stuff working. But all the rest of you that are not on the toolchain gang who didn't raise your hand, use new features in Perl when you have them. And why? Because it's a virtuous circle. Developer makes new feature gets used, developer is happy. Developer makes more new features, language gets better, everybody wins, and there's hearts and smiles. What's the alternative? Dev make new feature get ignored, nobody use it. Dev is sad, dev leaves, language dies, nobody wins. Sadness, crying. Use new features. Use subroutine signatures. Who uses subroutine signatures? Why is everybody's hand not up? Shout out to Rick in the back in the shirt for requiring 514 for the new version of Distill. Yay. This is a small but significant step in the right direction. Shout out to Mark Prather for pioneering the field of Yapsy cosplay. I walk in the footsteps of giants. And finally, a shout out to Matt Trout, who due to an unavoidable scheduling conflict was unable to be here, even though he really wanted to be here. It didn't feel like Yapsy without Matt here, so I decided to be Matt here. Thank you.
And that is the end of the lightning talks. So let's thank our speakers one more time. You have now seen just how hard it is. It's only 5 minutes. You can handle it. Next year, come on up, give a lightning talk. Remember, it's a gateway drug. You'll want to do 20 minutes. And now, to end the conference, our fearless leader again.